Heiress screams kidnapper at black tutor. The school's files say different. The shriek cut through the marble halls of St. Dempsey's Academy like a blade. "Help! He's trying to kidnap me!" It was the kind of scream that made time freeze. Students on the steps spun around. Parents gasped. A security guard at the gate dropped his coffee. Standing at the top of the grand entrance stairway, clutching her designer backpack like a life raft, was 13-year-old Astrid Kensington, daughter of billionaire philanthropist Howard Kensington and unofficial princess of the elite school. Below her, standing in stunned silence, was Andre Bell, 32, tall, sharply dressed in a modest grey blazer and pressed slacks. Andre looked more like a visiting professor than the school's new private academic support tutor. But to the watching crowd, none of that mattered. He was a black man, and the Kensington girl had just screamed the most dangerous word in America: kidnapper. Astrid's eyes darted wildly, her voice trembling as she pointed a shaky finger. "He grabbed me, right there by the arm. He tried to force me into his car." Gasps rippled. Phones came out. Someone was already dialing 911. The campus security guard began moving fast. Andre didn't flinch. Not yet. He didn't raise his voice, didn't make a sudden move. He simply looked up at Astrid with a quiet, almost wounded confusion. "Astrid," he said softly, "you left your planner in the library. I was bringing it to you, that's all." The crowd didn't hear his voice. Not really. They heard the sirens approaching in the distance. They saw the image. A frightened white girl, a composed black man, and centuries of narrative filled in the rest. By the time the police arrived, Andre had his hands calmly raised. He cooperated, said little. Let them cuff him. Let them walk him past students, parents, teachers, some shocked, others smugly satisfied. One mother whispered, "Knew he gave me a weird vibe." But there was one person watching from behind a library window, her hand trembling against the glass. Natalie Heiress, a junior, quiet, invisible mostly. No one ever noticed Natalie. But she'd been there, really there, in the library. She saw what happened, and she saw what didn't. 3 weeks earlier, Andre Bell stood in the gleaming office of Headmistress Caroline Grafton, the St. Dempsey's school crest etched behind her in gold leaf. She studied his resume with the same clinical precision as she used on a lab specimen. Harvard, then Columbia. Charter school success in D.C. Her eyes didn't rise. Why St. Dempsey's? Andre didn't smile. Because kids like Astrid Kensington can afford the world. But there are a few here who can't. And they're drowning. Grafton looked up now. That answer had surprised her. Andre had been hired quietly, not for the gifted elite, but as a support tutor for at-risk admits, the handful of students from scholarship or outreach programs. The school never advertised it, never bragged. But buried in the back wings, some kids didn't wear Gucci loafers, and those were the ones Andre had come for. It hadn't taken long to see the real dynamics of the place. Students like Astrid ruled by default. Her father had donated an entire STEM wing. She didn't need to earn respect. It was inherited. But Natalie Heiress, she blended into the wallpaper. Andre noticed her on day 2, books held tight to her chest, avoiding eye contact. She stayed late in the library every night, working until her fingers cramped. One evening, he'd gently asked if she wanted help. She looked up like he'd spoken a foreign language. "I don't belong here," she'd whispered. "So you do," he said, "and I'm going to prove it." Back in the present, Natalie watched Andre's arrest unfold from the library's shadowed second floor. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. She knew Astrid was lying, knew it with every fiber of her being. But the fear of speaking up against her was overwhelming. Astrid's power didn't come from her voice. It came from what happened to people who challenged it. Natalie had seen it before. Students mysteriously cut from clubs. One scholarship kid expelled over disciplinary violations after he beat Astrid in a debate. No one dared call it what it was: revenge. And now, Andre was going to pay the price. Unless someone did something. But Natalie had a secret too, one buried deep in the school system. A digital footprint, a video file accidentally auto-uploaded to the tutoring portal. Something only she had seen. Something that might change everything. Her hand hovered over the mouse. Should I? Natalie Heiress didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling of her shared apartment, while her mother quietly folded laundry in the next room, unaware of the storm her daughter was caught in. Natalie's laptop glowed beside her, open to the St. Dempsey's tutoring portal and the auto-synced file that had landed there just minutes before chaos broke out on campus. She hadn't even meant to find it. She'd just been uploading her essay. But somehow, tucked in the folder marked Session Archives, there it was. A grainy but clear video. She clicked play again. Andre Bell stood beside Astrid Kensington in the library hallway. The camera, likely from an old wall-mounted security lens, captured their exchange. No sound, but body language unmistakable. Andre held something out, her planner. Astrid hesitated, said something. Andre pointed toward the door. Astrid rolled her eyes, snatched the planner, and turned to walk away. There was no grabbing, no struggle, no coercion. None of the drama she screamed about minutes later. Natalie stared at the paused frame. Astrid, annoyed but untouched, and felt a wave of cold fury rise inside her. If this got buried, if Andre lost everything, she didn't know him well, but she knew what he stood for. He was the only adult on campus who ever looked her in the eye like she mattered, the only one who hadn't treated her like a scholarship charity case. So at 2:12 a.m., with shaking hands, Natalie downloaded the file onto a USB drive. By 8 a.m., it was already too late to hand it to the school, because the story had exploded. Breaking: billionaire's daughter alleges kidnap attempt at elite school. Black tutor taken into custody. No charges yet. The headline sat on every screen. Morning shows replayed shaky iPhone footage of Andre being handcuffed. Internet sleuths began digging into his past. Photos from his old protests. His TEDx talk on racial bias in education. All twisted out of context. And then came the vultures. Reporters camped outside St. Dempsey's gates. Talk shows speculated wildly. A prominent anchor sneered. Why was he even near her unsupervised? Hashtags trended. Protect our girls. St. Dempsey scandal. Andre Bell. Natalie ducked her head as she walked past the swarm, the USB drive warm in her coat pocket, like it was burning her skin. She didn't know who to trust. Not the administration. Grafton had already issued a PR-safe statement calling the situation deeply troubling. Not the students. They were split between outrage and silence, and Astrid's circle had closed ranks. So she went to the only person who might still care about the truth. Detective Jonah Whitaker was not expecting a teenager to show up at his precinct, holding a drive like it was a weapon. He squinted at her, eyebrows rising above his coffee-stained shirt collar. "You got something on the Kensington case?" Natalie nodded. "I was there, and this proves she lied." He motioned her in, shutting the door behind them. Inside the small interview room, she plugged in the drive. The detective leaned forward as the footage played. He didn't interrupt, didn't blink, just watched, then rewound, then watched again. When it ended, he sat back, slowly exhaled, and muttered, "Well, damn." By the end of the day, Andre Bell was released. No charges filed. But the damage wasn't undone. He stepped out of the precinct into a crowd of flashing cameras and angry whispers. His name had already become a weapon, in classrooms, online, in parents' group chats. One photo of him in cuffs had already been turned into a meme. The truth didn't matter to them. Astrid hadn't recanted. She didn't need to. Because in her world, perception was reality. Inside her family's private penthouse, Astrid scrolled through the backlash like it was a game. Her mother was on the phone with their PR team. Her father, silent in his study, but Astrid. She smiled. He deserved it, she whispered to herself. Because Andre Bell had threatened her control. She saw it. The first time he dared to tell her she was late to their meeting. The way he praised kids like Natalie. The way he acted like money didn't define who mattered. He had to learn. And she wasn't done yet. Natalie Reyes had never felt so visible in her life, and she hated every second of it. On Monday morning, her locker was covered in sticky notes. Not the cute kind. The kind that drip with venom. Snitch. Teacher's pet. Hope your little video was worth it. Liar. Enjoy your 15 minutes. Someone had even scrawled rat across her locker vent with a Sharpie. Black ink bled into the beige metal like it belonged there. She peeled off the notes one by one, hands shaking. Behind her, whispers rose and fell like waves crashing on her back. She's obsessed with Bell, you know, probably trying to get him fired for not giving her enough attention. Desperate much? Natalie's feet froze to the floor. These were the same kids who had never noticed her before. Now they had all the wrong attention. And worst of all, Astrid hadn't said a word. She didn't have to. One icy glance across the courtyard was enough to silence any defenders. Natalie lasted until lunch before hiding in the back corner of the library, heart pounding like a war drum. She curled into the corner chair, the one Andre used to sit in when helping her with her English essays. Now it just felt abandoned. Andre Bell sat across from his lawyer, fingers interlocked, jaw clenched. He hadn't slept in 3 nights. "I'm not suing," he said again. The lawyer blinked. "Andre, you were falsely accused of kidnapping. That's not just career-ending, and that's life-altering. Your reputation won't be fixed by dragging a 13-year-old girl through court," he interrupted. The lawyer sighed. "Then what do you want?" Andre stared out the window, past the headlines, past the viral clips, past the sound of a siren that still made his spine lock up. "I want to teach," he said quietly. But St. Dempsey's had already suspended him. "Administrative leave pending further review," the letter said. They'd thanked him for his professionalism and asked for the return of his campus badge. In private, one board member had called him and mumbled, "Maybe it's better if we just let things cool down." Andre knew what that meant. He was radioactive now. Even innocence couldn't compete with the echo of suspicion. Back on campus, Astrid Kensington strolled through the school gardens like nothing had happened. Her platinum hair caught the sunlight like a halo. Her followers orbited her in silence, but something about her demeanor had changed. She was watching more, listening, and when Natalie passed her by the drinking fountain, Astrid didn't sneer. She smiled, a slow, elegant, terrifying smile. "Bold move, Heiress," she purred, voice too soft to be overheard. "Must have felt good, saving your hero." Natalie's throat tightened. Astrid leaned in. "You really think this ends with a video?" She walked away before Natalie could reply, heels clicking like the countdown to something worse. That evening, Natalie logged into her school portal to submit a physics lab report and froze. Her grades were gone, her classes locked. An error message flashed across the screen. "Account access restricted. Contact administrator." Her stomach dropped. She called IT. They were looking into it. She emailed her counselor. No reply. By morning, a rumor had already started. She plagiarized her paper, cheated on her last exam, must have faked the whole file. It was Astrid's style. Clean, quiet, deniable. No confrontation, just reputation warfare. Natalie tried to keep calm, tried to pretend it didn't matter, but as the week dragged on, the pressure built. Every class was a minefield. Every glance felt loaded, until someone pushed it too far. Friday afternoon, Natalie's backpack went missing during gym. She found it in the girls' bathroom, dumped in the sink, soaked through. Inside, her USB drive was shattered, her notebooks ripped, and scrawled across the mirror in lipstick, "Keep running your mouth and see what happens." Natalie stood frozen, chest tight, tears threatening, until a voice behind her broke the silence. "You okay?" She turned. A girl stood in the doorway, tall, athletic, with tired eyes, and a St. Dempsey's varsity jacket. Tessa Monroe, senior, head of the track team. One of Astrid's former best friends, until last year's mysterious falling out. Tessa looked at the wreckage, then back at Natalie. "She's turning the whole school on you, huh?" Natalie nodded. Tessa sighed. "She tried to do it to me, too, when I started dating someone she didn't approve of." Natalie blinked. "Why are you telling me this?" Tessa hesitated, then pulled something from her pocket. A flash drive. She's not careful with her phone. "I've got screenshots, DMs, voice memos, stuff she deleted, but I didn't." She pressed the drive into Natalie's palm. "Time to stop playing defense." The files weren't just screenshots. They were receipts, digital fingerprints of Astrid's cruelty, carefully catalogued but never publicly seen. Tessa and Natalie sat huddled in a back booth of a 24-hour diner 2 miles from campus, the flash drive plugged into Tessa's laptop. Pancakes sat untouched. The neon sign buzzed overhead. Outside, rain started to tap against the window like it knew something was about to crack open. Natalie scrolled in silence, heart thudding. There were dozens of files. A voice memo. Astrid, bragging to a friend. "He touched my arm, big deal. I just wanted him gone." You know how fast people jump when you say kidnap these days? A screenshot of a text to her boyfriend. "Watch this. I'm gonna scream and make that tutor freak. He acts like he's better than us." A deleted note. Time stamped a week before the incident. "Find a way to make Bell disappear. He's messing up the hierarchy." It wasn't just malice. It was calculated. Tessa exhaled through her teeth. She's been doing this for years. To students, teachers. One janitor she didn't like got fired because she claimed he was lingering. Natalie clenched her fists. "Why didn't anyone stop her?" "Because she's a Kensington," Tessa said. "And because this school isn't built to protect people like us." Natalie's eyes narrowed. "Not anymore." Meanwhile, Andre Bell sat across from Headmistress Grafton once more, this time in the school's sleek legal office, accompanied by 2 board members and a district attorney's liaison. They wanted a quiet settlement. Full reinstatement is complicated, one board member said carefully. Optics. Andre's jaw tightened. You mean the optics of not disciplining the girl who lied? Another chimed in. Andre, we sympathize, but we need to think of the school's long-term reputation. Then think of what happens when people find out what you're hiding. A flicker of discomfort passed through Grafton's expression. The liaison cleared his throat. We can offer compensation, a letter of commendation, if you agree not to press charges or speak publicly. Silence. Andre stood, slowly. I became a teacher to show kids they mattered. I'm not walking away because you're scared of a press cycle. He turned to leave. But just before stepping out, he paused. And if you think you can bury this, you haven't met Natalie Reyes. Natalie, meanwhile, had made her decision. The next morning, she slipped the evidence drive into a padded envelope and addressed it to the one person she knew had enough influence and integrity to act. Detective Jonah Whitaker. But that wasn't enough. The school needed to feel the pressure, from within and without. So she took a deep breath and uploaded parts of the file anonymously to an encrypted student forum known as The Basement, where rumors often broke before admin ever caught on. She tagged the post with one word: Cast Truth Files. Within an hour, it had over 200 views. By lunch, 2,000. By nightfall, the post had been mirrored to Reddit, X, and Instagram. Screenshots of Astrid's own words and the suggestion that more was coming. Some still refused to believe it, but others started whispering, Yo, did you see the memo? That's her voice. She planned the whole thing. She said it like it was funny, and for the first time, Astrid's grip on St. Dempsey's began to loosen. By Monday morning, the school halls felt different, tighter, tenser. No one said Astrid's name out loud, but her presence was everywhere. In the half-finished whispers, the frozen glances, the way teachers stumbled through roll call when they got to Kensington. Some students walked on eggshells. Others dared to whisper about the files, the voice memo, the screenshots, and yet Astrid walked the halls untouched, perfectly composed, her hair immaculately curled, her uniform crisp. Not a single thread out of place. She didn't deny the leaks. She didn't need to, because in her world, the more she smiled, the more the system smiled with her. But something was slipping. A tiny hairline fracture beneath the gloss, and Astrid Kensington was not the type to let things crumble. Natalie had no idea the storm was coming. By Wednesday, a new post appeared in the basement forum from a verified student account. A blurry video clip taken from the tutoring room months earlier. Andre sitting beside Natalie, gently guiding her through a math problem. The angle made it look intimate, too close, too personal. The caption read, "This is who you're defending?" Within hours, the rumor had spread. They were close, like really close. She's obsessed with him. She made the whole thing up to cover for him. Check her Instagram. She deleted half her pics after he got arrested. Maybe he was grooming her. Natalie's lungs collapsed around her. She hadn't even posted those photos. They'd been taken during group tutoring sessions. Cropped, twisted. Someone was trying to make her the predator, and it didn't take long to find out who. Tessa slammed her locker shut. She used my laptop, she said, voice shaking. When I went to the bathroom, she sent herself the video from my backup drive. That clip, I filmed it months ago for a tutoring promo. She knew what it looked like. Natalie's head spun. Why would she? But Tessa's face went pale. She's not just protecting herself anymore. She's flipping the script. She's trying to make it look like you manipulated him. Natalie staggered back. That could destroy us both. Meanwhile, Andre stood in front of a small crowd of parents at a community education forum downtown. He hadn't planned to speak, just attend, listen, maybe connect with other educators. But word had spread. People knew. A mother raised her hand during the Q&A. Mr. Bell, what do you tell students when the system doesn't protect them? Andre hesitated. Then, for the first time publicly, he said it. You tell them the truth, even if it costs you everything. Gasps, whispers. A local blogger posted the video. Within minutes, the clip was viral, and within an hour, Andre got a call from Grafton. You're escalating things, she hissed. Andre didn't argue. He simply said, you should worry more about what's in the next file, and hung up. But Astrid had one more card to play. Thursday morning, Natalie arrived at school to flashing lights, police cruisers, students whispering. Tessa Monroe was being led out of the school in handcuffs. Natalie ran toward the crowd, heart in her throat. "What's going on?" A faculty member tried to block her. "Back, Natalie," but a nearby student whispered. "They said she hacked Astrid's phone, that she forged the screenshots." It was a lie. Natalie knew it instantly. Tessa hadn't faked anything. Astrid had used her, and now she was sacrificing her former best friend to discredit everything. Natalie's voice broke as they pushed Tessa into the cruiser. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Tessa didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just looked at Natalie and mouthed two words: "Finish it." Later that night, Natalie sat alone in her apartment, staring at a blinking cursor on a draft email to a national news outlet. She had the full folder now, all of it. The voice memos, the deleted messages, the private school files Andre had quietly shared, records of other complaints against Astrid, buried by donations and NDAs. She hovered over the send button and hit it. The first headline hit by dawn. Exclusive. Voice memos reveal Heiress lied about kidnapping Black Tutor. Evidence points to orchestrated smear campaign. By breakfast, it was on every major news outlet. CNN, MSNBC, even Fox, though their spin was different. Clips of Astrid's voice laughing about making Belle freak, replayed on loop. The footage of her false accusation, paired with the damning text, "He acts like he's better than us." The reaction was nuclear. Not just outrage, betrayal. The public had rallied around Astrid for weeks, and now she was exposed. Not as a frightened victim, but a calculated predator cloaked in privilege. Social media turned vicious. "Astrid Firegrafton, Jung Free Tessa, you justice for Andre, Jung Kensington lies." Astrid's name was no longer a brand of perfection. It was a warning. And inside the walls of St. Dempsey's, the kingdom began to crumble. The Kensington PR team released a statement by noon. "Astrid is a minor and has been deeply affected by recent events. She never intended to cause harm and is receiving the support she needs. We ask for privacy as our family navigates this difficult time." No apology, no admission. But damage control couldn't stop the bleeding. Other students began coming forward. Anonymous emails, snippets of abuse. One brave senior, Zoe Masters, spoke to a podcast. "She used to call us the fillers, said we were just here to make her look important." The podcast went viral. Then a former teacher tweeted, "I reported Astrid's behavior in 2022. The school asked me to quietly resign." Receipts were posted, screenshots, emails with timestamps. Every stone turned over uncovered 10 more lies, and the image of Astrid Kensington, golden girl of St. Dempsey's, shattered like glass. In a dark room, Astrid screamed at her laptop. Her parents were out of frame, in endless meetings with lawyers and advisors. Her phone buzzed non-stop. Texts from former friends, private numbers, hate mail, death threats. But what hurt most was the silence from the school. No one defended her, not even Grafton. And when she stormed into the headmistress's office that afternoon, demanding an explanation, she found the doors locked, guarded by security. Grafton didn't come out, but a notice went up later that day. Effective immediately, Astrid Kensington is suspended pending investigation. The administration has referred this matter to an independent ethics panel. Suspended, like any other student. Astrid stood in the quad, watching the words travel from phone to phone, face to face. For the first time in her life, she was alone. At the same time, Andre Bell walked through the front gates of St. Dempsey's, not in cuffs, not in shadows, but with reporters trailing him, microphones outstretched. He didn't answer questions. He didn't need to. He had his reinstatement letter in hand, signed by the board after a closed-door emergency meeting. "Mr. Bell is hereby welcomed back to St. Dempsey's with full privileges and our sincerest apologies." But he didn't smile, because there were still scars beneath the surface, ones no headline could erase. He walked past students who now looked at him with something between guilt and awe, past teachers who lowered their eyes, and past Natalie Reyes, standing by her locker, watching everything unfold. He paused. "Thank you," he said softly. She shook her head. "We're not done yet." Because Tessa Monroe was still in holding. Even with public pressure, the charges hadn't been dropped yet. Not completely. And that's when the twist came. The one no one saw coming. A video leaked. It was a body cam clip from the arrest. A school officer smiling awkwardly as he slipped a plastic evidence bag into his pocket. Not an official bag. Not labeled. And definitely not protocol. The clip exploded across the internet. Activists grabbed it, Civil rights lawyers reposted it. It took less than 24 hours for the DA's office to announce a full review, and within another 12, all charges against Tessa were dropped. She walked out of custody with a defiant smile, camera crews surrounding her, supporters chanting, and right beside her, Natalie. That night, a final video hit the internet. It wasn't leaked, it was recorded. Natalie, sitting in her room, raw, unfiltered, she told the full story. From the library, to the files, to Astrid's threats, to Andre's arrest, to what it felt like to have the truth, and no one listened. She didn't cry, she didn't ask for sympathy, she just said, "I stood up because I knew what it felt like to be invisible, and I wasn't going to let that be the last thing I felt." The video hit 6 million views in a week. The boardroom at St. Dempsey's had never been this full. Reporters lined the back wall. Parent representatives sat stiffly along one side, student council leaders on the other. At the head of the long mahogany table, 3 independent investigators, hired just days ago, prepared to read their findings aloud. Headmistress Caroline Grafton sat motionless in the middle, flanked by 2 attorneys, her face the color of stone, and at the center of it all, in a modest black sweater and jeans, sat Natalie Heiress. She had never been in this room before. This was where money moved silently, where decisions were made behind closed doors, where names like Kensington had weight. Now she was the weight. The lead investigator stood. After reviewing submitted evidence, student statements, digital records, and archived disciplinary files, she paused, letting the room hold its breath. "We find a pattern of systemic negligence and intentional suppression of misconduct reports, most notably regarding one student, Astrid Kensington." Gasps. Scribbling pens. A parent whispered, "They're actually saying it out loud." Natalie's heart beat like a war drum. The investigator continued, "We also find that several disciplinary cases were improperly closed under pressure from external donations, including cases involving physical bullying, digital harassment, and false accusations." She looked directly at Grafton. "The headmistress knowingly allowed this culture to persist." A reporter raised their hand. "Does this mean she's being fired?" The investigator didn't flinch. "Effective immediately, Caroline Grafton is placed on unpaid leave pending termination proceedings." And just like that, after 2 decades of icy control, the Queen of St. Dempsey's was out. Grafton didn't speak. She didn't even blink. She stood, gathered her files, and walked silently out of the room. Outside, a crowd waited. Students, parents, faculty. They didn't cheer. They didn't jeer. They just watched her go. Like a spell breaking, Natalie stood at the top of the steps, Tessa by her side, Andre behind them. And for a moment, silence wrapped the scene in something like justice. Then a voice broke through. A young student, maybe 12, whispered to their mother, "Is she the one who stopped it?" Their mother nodded toward Natalie. "That's her." But just as the dust began to settle, Andre got a call. From a number he hadn't seen in years. "Belle," he said into the phone, wary. A voice crackled. Male. Old. Familiar. "You were right. About the files. About Grafton. About all of it." Andre went still. "Mr. Dennison?" he asked. "You retired 10 years ago." Dennison sighed. "I didn't retire. I was paid to walk away. After I reported what she was doing with admissions, especially with the Kensington case." Andre's stomach dropped. "What about the Kensington case?" A pause. "You don't know, do you?" Dennison said. "The donation didn't just buy Astrid's acceptance. It bought something else." Andre's blood ran cold. "What?" Another pause. "She was supposed to be expelled 2 years ago, caught altering grades and plagiarizing entire essays. Grafton buried it. Said she had mental health considerations." Andre stared out his office window. "They've been covering for her since she was 11. That night, Natalie sat at her desk, scrolling through emails when a ping hit her inbox. A message from an encrypted account. Subject, "There's one more file." Attached, a zip folder. She scanned it. No virus. Opened it. Inside was a recording. Low resolution, likely from an old classroom security camera. Astrid, younger, 12, maybe 13, screaming at a boy half her size, threatening him, pushing him, and in the corner of the frame, Grafton watching from the hallway, not stepping in, just turning, walking away. Natalie closed her laptop. The war was over. But the truth? The truth was only just beginning to bloom. 3 weeks later, the gates of St. Dempsey's Academy opened to a different kind of silence. Gone were the camera crews, the the whispers, the daily swirl of drama. The air felt still, not calm, but stripped bare, like the school was rebuilding from exposed bone. Natalie Reyes walked the stone path toward the front steps, head high. She passed the spot where Astrid once screamed, "Kidnapper!" and felt a strange chill, not of fear but of power reclaimed. Behind her, murals lined the brick walls, new student art, painted over the old, sterile, inspirational quotes. One showed André Bell holding a book like a torch, light pouring out across shadowed faces. Another showed a faceless girl, black hoodie, tattered backpack, standing in a hallway of giants, unafraid. Natalie hadn't painted them, but she knew who they were meant to be. In the weeks since Grafton's ousting and the release of the final file, the board had launched a full-scale reform initiative. The Kensington family had pulled Astrid from school, citing emotional trauma. Rumor said she was in a Swiss rehabilitation institute, code for hide her until the storm passed. No charges were filed. She was a minor. She was unwell, but she was never coming back. And neither was her empire. The hallways had changed. Teachers whispered less. Students walked freer. New counseling staff were brought in. A third-party task force reviewed every old disciplinary case. André Bell? He had been offered more than just reinstatement, a full-time position, Director of Equity and Student Support. He accepted, and with one condition. "I'm not here to clean up your mess," he told the board. "I'm here to burn the old rulebook." They agreed. Reluctantly, but they agreed. Natalie was offered the Student Council presidency, a symbolic olive branch from the school she'd nearly been expelled from just months earlier. She declined. "Let someone else speak," she said. "I've said what I needed to." Instead, she started something else, a new forum. Not anonymous, not secret. A student archive of unheard stories. Truths that didn't get buried. She called it the Ledger. Within a week it had over 800 contributors. Some with their names, some without, but all of them finally seen. Tessa Munro returned to class quietly. She didn't smile much, but when she passed Natalie in the courtyard, she gave her a small nod, the kind that said, "We made it." And Natalie, who used to shrink from eye contact, nodded back, not because she needed approval, but because she'd earned something better, her place. On the final Friday of the semester, André walked into the library, now renamed after a long-forgotten student who dropped out under mysterious disciplinary pressure years ago. Natalie sat in the back corner, reading. He took the chair across from her. They didn't speak right away. Then he said softly, "I almost left." "I know." He looked at her. "But you didn't let me." She didn't smile. "Not quite." "I didn't do it for you," she said. "I did it because I didn't want to be the kind of person who walks away." He nodded slowly. That's how real change starts. Outside, rain began to fall. Not a storm, just enough to cleanse the air. The old world was gone. The new one wasn't perfect, but it had cracks where light could finally get in. And sometimes that's all you need.